Hello and welcome to Boomer 11 Live. We are today going to be talking about a different sport than what you're used to seeing the two of us speak. And once again, it's time for the role reversal. I have with me Abel right here. The FIFA World Cup 2022 is right about the corner, and we are days away from when it is starting. Excitement about the World Cup is huge because it's the first ever Winter World Cup, and it's going to be the first ever World Cup played in the Middle East. Some of the many firsts that you'll see in this year's World Cup. I have with me Abel. Abel, welcome to the show. But before we begin, please do go ahead and download Boom 11 from App Store or Google Play. It is a fantasy experience which is risk free, and you don't have to worry about losing anything because there are no losers when it comes to Boom 11. Boom 11, pick, play, and win. There's just win and there isn't any loss. But welcome, Abel, to the show. How excited are you for the World Cup?
I've been pretty excited. Firstly, thank you, Jen, for having me on the show. And to start off with, when we talk about World Cups, the first World Cup which comes into the mind of every sporting fan is the Football World Cup. There is no doubt about it. We
Yeah.
can talk about Cricket World Cups and other World Cups, but one World Cup which will be able to resonate with is the FIFA World Cup. It is the marquee event. It is possibly the biggest sporting event in the world, and there's 32 teams who go up against each other for the quest for the biggest glory. So I'm super pumped, super hyped for this World Cup, and especially because this is a different World Cup for a lot of reasons. Usually, we are so used to seeing World Cups in the summers, and it's a World Cup which can be played in the winters. And for a lot of countries, people will have to be traveling during winters. So it's quite different for the first ever time. But I'm very pumped for this World Cup because for the first ever time, I'm going to be having how I'm going to be seeing how teams are going to go up against each other. And if I would say, a lot of players are going to be coming. It's one of the World Cups where I feel it's one of the most balanced World Cups in terms of a lot of things. When it comes to a lot of squads across, across groups, all are well balanced. You can see at least one star player in every team. So for
Yeah.
that liking, I think it's going to be the most competitive World Cup after a long time. In 2018, 2014, 2010, you could always pick out teams who are slightly weaker. But this time around, because of the exposure a lot of players have got in their own leagues, when it comes to playing in Europe, so a lot of teams have these superstar players coming into this World Cup. So I reckon it's going to be one of the best World Cups out there. I'm super pumped for this.
Absolutely. This is definitely one of the most balanced World Cups. But let's talk about one side of it, right? We've seen the past few World Cups where European teams have really dominated. We've had European winners as well.
Yeah.
France, Spain, and Italy, I think, are the last three winners, which is probably a European color that you would see in the World Cup. But now, this year, coming into the World Cup, we're seeing some of the South American teams, the South American traditional superpowers, Argentina and
Hmm.
Brazil, are turning really, I mean, are doing really well. We saw Argentina beat Italy very convincingly when they faced off in the recent, I mean, in the recent time where I mean, the both Europa, I mean, Euro Cup winners and the Copa America winners came together. We saw how good this Argentinian team is, and also the Brazilian team. They are world number one right now in FIFA rankings. They are looking incredibly good. How do you think now this year's World Cup? Do you think it's going to be going back to South America?
There's high possibility of that happening just minutes before the Brazilian squad was officially announced. So the Brazilian squad is. We'll be talking about teams separately in every of
Yeah.
our previews. So leading into the World Cup, we are just 2 weeks away from the marquee event from today. So yeah, talking about that, 20 years. It's been 20 long years since the World Cup has gone back to South America. And you have seen a lot of transition, a lot of South American teams and European football really coming up to the fore is one of the reasons why South American football has fallen apart, and you could see it in the quality as well. When it comes to Copa America and Euros, you can understand CONMEBOL, the kind of teams who are part of the federation. I have a lot of restrictions and I have a lot of limitation when it comes to finances, when it comes to development
Yeah.
of players, when it comes to structure in their own country. But when it comes to European teams, they've really gone maybe a 3-4 notch higher when it comes to talent, when it comes to developing and monitoring and really getting the finances into place as well. So the structure of football in every country really matters. In South America, over the last 20 years, we've seen some of the worst things happen all across South America. Colombia, if you say about Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, a lot of these countries have been there to put up some really good talents. But when it comes to a structured team to compete against European superpowers, it was always tough. For example, you saw in the last World Cup when Brazil came up against a Belgium team. You saw how they struggled technically. It was a game where Belgium won on technical basis. They had better tacticians out there, and they dominated Brazil in that game. Like, so De Bruyne, he was too good for Brazil to even handle. So tactically and technically, they've really evolved. And another backfall for South American football has been that they've not been able to adapt to the modern game trends, because modern game is all quick. You need pace. You need to be much more attacking minded. You need to have a lot more tactics which is involved in it. But South American football is slightly old school in terms of a lot of things. One of the reasons why South American football hasn't really competed, I think the last World Cup where a South American team really came close was 2014, where Argentina came very close to
Yeah.
getting the World Cup glory. It was played in South America as well. So you could say these kind of factors do play a part. Brazil and Argentina both came to a very close finish. Other than that, 2010 was when Uruguay really had a dream run in that World Cup. They came to semi-final, lost to
Yeah.
a very good Dutch team as well. But 2014 was the closest ever they came in the last 20 years. So that's why I feel, this is time for a South American team to really lift it. It could be anyone. I'm not saying it's Argentina and Brazil. It could be also Uruguay, because they've got some really good talents out there. So I'm pretty excited for this World Cup for these particular reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be an interesting one because there is a rejuvenation, to say the least, about South American teams. You are going to see that South American teams
I
are
love the way how
not going to
Aisha
be.
says our favorite team is Netherlands, and because of the fact that they have
Oh,
Pakistan as
absolutely.
well.
I think it's just I'm
I think
glad to
they
see
should.
Aisha.
They
You
should.
are.
I think the entire Pakistan should support for Netherlands if Pakistan go on
Yeah.
to win this World Cup.
I mean,
Just
and there is a lot of fans. I mean, there are a lot of what do you say, Pakistani expat population there. You might see them come in with Netherlands t-shirts, with and supporting some of their favorite players. And who knows? I mean, maybe that's what we will see because Netherlands have done them a great favor. We will speak about it on the cricket side of things. But nice to have you here, Aisha. Now, Abel, we have spoken about how this World Cup is going to be played at a different time frame. It is going to be a winter World Cup, which is something which is extraordinary, really. And in many ways, you would expected that to be the difficulty, especially I think because of the COVID and everything, also the fact that it's happening in Qatar. But now, how do you expect the conditions are going to be? I mean, I know we're not going to be talking about it in cricket way in the way we speak about it in cricket, but definitely the temperature and the ground conditions some may play a part in how football is played. You might
yeah.
not see rain, for instance, stop a football game, but it certainly affects the pitch conditions, right? So how do you think this World Cup? What should we be expecting? What should the players be expecting in terms of
Well,
ground
firstly, to
conditions?
talk about that, when Qatar really won the bid for the World Cup, everyone was pretty amused because in Middle East during summers you can't play football. You're going to be having 45 degrees Celsius, and players are going to burn their
Yeah,
skin off. So it was the first thing which everybody had it in their mind, because it was always going to be tough to play football during summers. And
yeah,
so the biggest question was, when will the football World Cup be played in Qatar? And the biggest answer to that was, it will be played during winters. So for the first ever time, you're going to be going into a World Cup where you've already had mid-season football, not even mid-season, maybe one-fourth of the season is already done for a lot of leagues, and you already are seeing the effect of this. I think we'll be talking about later on in the podcast.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, talking
definitely.
about that, I think when it comes to Qatar, I still think it won't be cold. It's November, early December. Maybe if at all it's playing like later in the night, you can see a little bit of brief breeze which will fall in through the later part of December. Maybe it won't be that cold. It'll be 20 degrees Celsius, which is quite common in England. For all these lads, I think it's going to be proper summer. For the lads coming in from Europe, they're going to be like, okay, this is hot, because the temperatures are still going to be high
Yeah,
20s and 30s. Now, it's not going to make a lot of difference in terms of that. I don't think there'll be any rain at all when it comes to that. But when it comes to the ground conditions in Qatar, from whatever I've been able to see, a lot of these stadiums are well built, and the kind of pitches are top. Of course, you need to have standards by FIFA, but then just talking about the structure of the grounds and everything, they put a lot of effort for that. I don't want to talk about the entire backstory of building of these stadiums and how human resources have been used. I don't think that we are not going to go into that part of things. But talking about just the kind of the spectacle they've been able to set up for this World Cup, it's just wonderful to see. I know they've really waited for this even for last 10 years, and it's finally happening. So they've been able to build close to 4 to 5 stadiums over the next last 10 years, and the stadiums are some of the best in the world with air conditioned facilities and all these stuff. Let me tell you, I think that's one of the reasons why they knew the reason why they brought air conditioned facilities into the stadium is because they knew this World Cup is going to be much hotter than other World Cups across Europe or even South America,
yeah.
because slightly, if you're talking about it, it's going to be 35 degrees Celsius during the daytime as well. Even during November, and towards first part of December as well. So it's not going to be easy, especially during day games, because we're going to be having some games played at 1 in the afternoon Qatar timings. So it's going to be very, very interesting to watch that from that perspective. But other than that, I really think there's going to be a World Cup for teams who are going to stay fit throughout. It's not going to be easy because of this very weather conditions, and also for teams who are facing a lot of injuries leading into this World Cup because of the football season having been already started in Europe. So because of the very fact, I think a lot of teams who stay fit throughout the process of the World Cup will have a better run in the World Cup.
I mean, let's talk about the fact, that as you mentioned, this World Cup is, it played in a different time frame, you would say, in the middle of the season. And there are a lot of injuries that are coming in. England is
Yeah.
one of the teams which has really struggled in terms of injury. We're
Mm.
seeing so many players losing out on their, World Cup hopes and crashing out because it has been a hectic time for football players. They're playing a lot of tournaments. Even now that you have, Conference League, for instance, in Europe, you're seeing almost a lot of teams, lot more teams playing European football now. There are a lot of cups that are coming in the domestic leagues, and plus now the World Cup coming right in the middle. So now my question to you here is, how much have and how difficult it has been for players, and do you think maybe there was some kind of buffer period that how much would it affect? Because before the World Cup, you saw that when the World Cup was coming, it was always after a season was completed. So you would have a training camp where the players would come in, condition themselves according to the conditions they would face for instance, in this case, it's Qatar, and there would be reconditioning, there would be camps that were done, and at least 1 month before the World Cup, the preparations would begin. But now, for example, Southgate is going stadium to stadium to see how potential squad members are going to be playing. And he has been visiting Ash. I think he was yesterday there in the Everton match, if I'm not wrong, Everton Leicester City match. He's gone to a few stadiums. So not just talking about Southgate, but talking about other managers as well. So how difficult will it be this time around to make prepare a squad for the World Cup? Because you realize that it's not going to be easy, because the squad that
Mhm.
you might have, the managers would have planned for this
Yeah.
World Cup and going with a particular squad. Many of those
Mm.
people are now sitting injured. I mean, even
Yeah.
Messi has just had an injury scare. So how difficult would it be for players to actually prepare themselves for a World Cup? Also, given the fact that many of these players don't play with their international teammates.
Yeah, true. Firstly, Jen, one of the reasons why I was very skeptical about a lot of teams was I was very scared. When I knew the World Cup was going to play in mid-season, one thing which always was in my mind was I just hope a lot of these players do not get injured, and that's exactly what's
Yeah.
happening now. And you saw scheduling as well. If you look at European football, it was scheduled so tightly. You had a Premier League game on a Sunday, you had a Champions League game on a Tuesday. Throughout,
Yeah.
you had Champions League games being played every week. So it was one of the toughest or tightest scheduling I'd seen for any European football. And the demands of the game. It's not like a player is going to be like, I'm not going to give my 100% looking at my World Cup hopes. If they're going to say that to a club, they're going to show you a way
I
out of
mean,
the club as well.
a Messi can do it, a Neymar can do it, or
I
an
still don't
Mbappe
think
can do
so.
it. But
I
what
still
about
don't think
young
so.
players who are trying to break into the? For example, let's look at some of the younger players like a Bukayo Saka
No,
or
no. Why
someone
you
who's
say
probably
that
not.
is because you mentioned Messi can do it. You say Neymar can do it. You say Mbappe can do it. They can't do it, to be very honest. Let's talk about that Paris Saint Germain team. They've had good success, and they've had good success because the demands from the owners of the club is that you have to qualify for the Champions League knockouts. The
Yeah,
whole aim is to qualify into the next round of Champions League, so you have to give it all. Maybe on that course, can you really give it away in League On? I don't think so. You can't do that as well. So you really have to be on
yeah,
top of your game throughout this course. So I personally thought it was very tough for a lot of players. You saw, for example, Araujo getting injured was one of the biggest injuries for Uruguayan team. It was going to be tough for them. Timo Werner, he faced an injury. Reece James, Ben Chilwell, all these lads. And let's talk about two players from the defending champions, N'Golo Kante and Paul Pogba as well. So
yeah,
we're seeing major scare of injuries because of this season and the way it's been scheduled. I knew it was coming. The moment I knew the kind of scheduling they've done for this World Cup, I knew a lot of players are going to miss out on the World Cup. So imagine, you're talking about the commitment you have to give for a club. You have to understand the age. Imagine the players towards the latter half of 30s, and this was
hmm,
probably his last chance to get his hands on the World Cup. He gets one knock, one muscle tear, so always going to be always going to have the behind his mind. Should I go for this tackle? Should I just
yeah,
play a little safe? We're just 1 month away from the World Cup. If I have an injury here, then my career to get a World Cup is done. Even for Ronaldo, for example, maybe I don't know why I feel Ronaldo hasn't. I'll never question his commitment for Manchester United, but I just see Ronaldo saving his best for this World Cup. I have a
Hmm.
feeling Ronaldo might just be saving the best for the World Cup. He knows
Yeah, yeah.
this is probably his last chance to get the hands on the trophy, and maybe it's good news for Portugal fans. This is just 1 month where he has to really give it all. 28 days of good football he plays is he can be ending that GOAT debate. Maybe not, maybe yes, but at least he can be termed as possibly the greatest of this generation by helping Portugal to their maiden ever World Cup trophy. They've not had success in World Cup. The closest they finished is in 2004 in his maiden World Cup, where they went to the semi-final. That was a chance for them. They lost to France in penalties, but here is an opportunity for this particular team and to really get success. So maybe Ronaldo might be saving his best for this World Cup. So many people are saying he got off to the worst of starts in for Manchester United, but you never know if he goes on to have that form for 30 days. He can just forget the Manchester United form. He can put that to the garbage. He'll be remembered for those 30 days for the rest of his career, not for the number of Champions League.
Yeah.
So I think even players like Ronaldo, players, a lot of players also have seen even La Liga, for example, a lot of players really want to stay a little back. I've seen Jordi Alba when he gets chances. He knows that he doesn't want to go out there and make a rough tackle. Whatever I've seen of Jordi Alba in the last couple of matches for Barcelona as well, he knows he's in the radar to be called up. He can be possibly playing a very pivotal role. I think he's going to be captain for the Spanish team as
Yeah,
well.
but then my question being here, Evil, that can be done by that is something that the reason that I say Messi, Mbappe, they can do it, or rather they can be a little bit more slack is because even if they don't perform or even if they don't give the commitment to a club match, you would expect them to still get into the World Cup, right? Ronaldo, for instance, if he slacks off, it's not like Portugal's going to drop him from the squad.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
my question being, let's look at someone like Madison, for example, from Leicester City. He's at the fringe of the World Cup squad, and there are many people who are saying, will he get in, will he not get in? So he has to do everything to impress Southgate. So he has to give his 100% even in the club matches. And then leading into the World Cup, he has to do that. He has to have that run of form. So that's my question, right? So there are players at the fringe of the squad who have to give their
mhm.
100%. When
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
get injured, or they could have a career-ending injury at this stage because of the kind of exertion they are being forced to.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right on that. That is another thing. You want to also impress to get into that World Cup squad. Many of the players already know they do not have a chance because, with these international managers leading into the World Cup, it's always been the case that they choose a team which they are always used to choosing. For example,
Yeah.
for Team England, you will
Hmm.
say Harry Maguire is not even part of Manchester United's starting 11 for any of these games. But Gareth Southgate really relies on him. So you have seen them with multiple teams. For European team for the longest period of time, I think for 4 years, they kept on choosing the 20 men time and time again, until they had a new manager last year, where they started choosing a lot more new players, new additions into the team. So it's a practical thing with a lot of managers that they want to stick to their pragmatic squads. They want to just go into the same men time and time again because they believe that chemistry, what they built in the national team, that should be sustained for a longer period of time because they get to work with these players just for maybe 20 days in the entirety of the year. So it's very tough to bring in new players and again fit them into the system, fit them into the new philosophy of gameplay. It's very tough. So
Yeah.
they believe that I'll call back the same players time and time again. And for youngsters who might have already been given this signal that, for example, likes of Alejandro Garnacho for Argentina, for him, he knows that he might be called up. So he has to really perform and he really has to be on top of his game as well. He's been doing a good job for the liking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think
and
in that
and
Man United match, I think it was played yesterday itself against Aston Villa. He was one of their better players for Man
yeah,
United. He made some great runs into the box, especially wide, and he
yeah,
tried to get the ball in, but it was not a very easy match for them. But he is
yeah,
one of the talents that you're looking into. It. What a life he's been living, training with
yeah,
Messi in
yeah,
in
yeah,
Argentina,
absolutely, absolutely.
and
I think
then coming back to play with Ronaldo in Man United. He's having one of the better runs. I think
It'll be
dream
tough,
start for a
tough
career.
thing for him to choose who was his favorite player for sure because he knows he has to be in the dressing room with
But you
both
know
of these
what?
guys.
For me, this is just me speaking. If I were in his shoes, I think if he's undecided yet, because if Messi goes on to win the World Cup for Argentina, Messi might just become his idol. Because
Yeah, who knows? He could be a super
yeah,
sub for Argentina in the final minutes of a World Cup,
but
and he
yeah, I
could
mean,
be
it's
the
just
reason why Messi wins the World Cup as well. And he can
yeah,
proudly
yeah,
say that to Ronaldo that I won World Cup for Messi. So not the right way to rub it in, but yeah. But to be honest, no, he's a fantastic talent. I think
yeah,
he admires both of these players, and I think he's living the dream, as you
absolutely,
rightly mentioned. I just pointed him out, one of the players who's in
yeah,
the fringes of getting called up, and Scaloni has been really calling him up for the last couple of friendly matches they've had. So which means he's in the radar for sure. And what we've seen with a lot of some of the newer managers is that they have been giving chances to players who are in form. For example, you just saw the Brazil squad come in, and what is the biggest surprise in that? You do not have a Coutinho, you don't have a Firmino, but you have a Dani Alves who's in the Brazilian squad for the World Cup. He's 39 years old, and
yeah,
he's going to be one of their right backs for the World Cup. So it also says that some of the managers really trust in the old guns. For example, Uruguayan squad is definitely going to be having the likes of Godin, Cavani, and Suarez in that lineup. All of 30, 34, 35 plus, but these lads are going to be so important in their run. So a lot of managers do stick to their old guns. They still trust them because they believe in a tournament like World Cup. Let's go back. Let's not talk about form or current form. Let's go back to the players that have given enough chances. So it's a tough one, but a lot of youngsters would really want to impress, especially for the Spanish squad. A lot of players are doing an audition. I know Pedri,
yeah.
Gavi, all these lads are definitely in, but with what Lucho has done in the last few years, he just keeps shuffling. So you don't know who are the players who are going to really make the cut. For example, Fabian Ruiz, who's part of PSG, has not really got a lot of game time. So I'm not sure if he's going to get a
Mhm.
breakthrough as well. So with Lucho, the thing is that he looks into current form. He looks into players who are really playing well across, and he picks them up. He doesn't really believe in, okay, these lads have done well for me in the past. Or if you were calling Sergio Ramos, he hasn't called
Yeah,
Sergio
yeah,
Ramos or David De Gea. So he believes David De Gea does not really fit into his system. De Gea does not fit into his system. So David De Gea, he believes, is not the ideal choice. He's gone for Unai Simon as his number one choice in most of the games. So he believes in a player who plays ball from the back. So these are some managers who like their own philosophy. Every manager is different. And for example, Didier Deschamps from France, he has got plenty of things to sort out. I think we'll talk about it
mhm,
when we talk about France team. So every
yeah.
manager has their own issues to deal with, but some managers really believe that let's call. So they already will give signal, lad, we are watching on you. We want you to put up this performance. Then he goes on to do well mid-season. He might get a dream call for his national team, and he could possibly be having a breakthrough season.
Fair enough. I mean, it's going to be exciting, and that's one of the reasons why you're seeing that this World Cup is so exciting. Uh, yeah, am I there? Am I there?
I think Jaren, you're breaking up slightly.
I'll just rejoin. Wait, I think
It's okay.
we'll
It's okay
continue.
now. It looks
Yeah,
good.
it's
It looks
better.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the reason why you would see that this year's World Cup is so exciting because it's one of those World Cup after a long time when there are many contenders for the World Cup, and I mean, we both were discussing about this off camera as well. That there is going to be a lot of upsets. Watch out for a lot of upsets. Some of the players' individual performances might factor in, but at the end of the day, these kind of tournaments. Let's just talk about the whole. I think I'm facing some issues, right? I'll just join back in.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's okay. You can go ahead. I think you're fine. You're doing good. No worries. No worries. Go ahead. Okay, I think Jaren we just lost Jaren there, but yeah, we'll continue. Yeah, I think Aisha's question, Park Army is providing security. Yeah, even I read reports on the same. Because they will need a lot of logistics and security, especially in a World Cup like situation. It's a small country. Qatar is not a big country, so it's one of the first ever major events. So they are looking for private security and also security from across borders. So that's why I feel Qatar, a lot of these army are, I think Park Army is involved in that Qatar World Cup as well. But talking about this World Cup, as Jen was also talking about it, for me personally, it's going to be a World Cup of surprises. You do not know who's going to win it. A lot of people want Argentina to win it. Some people want Portugal to win it because their favorite players do play for those teams. But it's possibly going to be a surprise. It could be a team which we all don't expect as well. So it is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a World Cup which is the most balanced World Cup after a long, long time. So it's very tough to pick up a winner. And World Cup is a different ball game. You might have so many superstars in one team, but if they can play together, chemistry is so
Yeah.
important. When you play for national team, all these superstars and names go out of the window. It's about how well they can gel together and play. I've seen that time and time again in these big events. It's about who peaks in that World Cup in that world stage, as it's so different from what we see them playing for club.
I think especially because now you don't have those condition camps anymore. You don't have the training camps anymore where managers would bring their squad in for a month. All of them would train together, and that is when these players would get used to them, used to each other, because football is one of those games where team chemistry matters so much, because a player cannot single-handedly take the game away from the opposition. There needs to be at least 2 to 3 players minimum who are on the ball, off the ball, making those runs, attacking. I mean, in when it comes to offensive game, and also when it comes to defensive game, you need those 2 to 3 players to make sure that all the gaps are plugged in, and that the opposition are not able to get their through balls in, are able to make runs into the box. So that's why you cannot have the 1 or 2 players run the team. You need to have a team chemistry where everyone gels together. And so football is a lot more complicated when it comes to strategies and various other factors. But let's talk about World Cup as a format. We always speak about football. I think a league format and a World Cup or a knockout format is very different, because you don't get many matches to make an impression, right? And you lose 1 or 2 games, 1 or 2 moments that can be fatal when it comes to a World Cup campaign. For example, I think we saw the Germany Argentina final where Messi kept hitting the post and could not get the target, and that cost them the match. And the one ball that went in the target in the 113 minute was Germany, and they went on to clinch the World Cup. So how
Yeah.
much will this World Cup now, coming into the World Cup, how much this format makes it a game of fine margins?
Yeah, it's absolutely right when you mentioned about, for a lot of teams, understand in a league format and in a cup format, it's a lot different. So that's why the margins between teams also get closed down. And that's where a chance of it being upsets or a result which you really don't expect can also happen in these cup formats. What happens is it's about holding your nerve for the 90 minutes of game. I'm just
Yeah.
not talking about group stages. I'm just not talking about knockout. I'm talking about a group stage, especially if you can hold your nerve for 90 minutes, play possibly even not the best of football, you can possibly churn out a result. It could be a draw, it could be a result of any sorts. So that's why I reckon a lot of teams, a lot of these weaker oppositions compared to these European giants or South American giants are in with a chance when it comes to churning out these results. And this World Cup, especially with the kind of talent depth. Teams from Africa has got teams from Europe and teams even from Asia, like so Japan and South Korea. They've been in good form. And remember, the host nation and Saudi Arabia also are playing good football leading into this World Cup. So a lot of these teams will be hopeful that they can get some sort of result here or there and really push forward. What happens in cup format is that if you can get results, if it's a 1-0 play, not the best kind of football, just get 1-0 results, play some really dirty football out there and get results. That's all what matters at the end of the day. You can be in semi-final, you can go deep into the tournament very quickly. All what you have to play is possibly 6 good games to reach the semi-final. And from there on, it's anybody's game. You just have to keep on playing it. So not the most attractive teams go on to win the World Cup. It's very rare that you see the most attractive teams go on to win the World Cup, and especially
Yeah.
in international stages, we've seen time and time again. The teams who play pragmatic football, the managers with pragmatic philosophy have always done well. They're always a notch above other teams. The teams who defend well always wins the championship. I think this World Cup, or as every World Cup has been, I think defense wins you championships and attack can win you games. So who has got the best defense? It's going to be
Yeah.
tough. They are the ones who are going to really go deep into the tournament. If you remember in 2014, Mats Hummels, Mertesacker, all these lads had a very good tournament. For example, 2018, Umtiti and Varane, they were the duo to be. In 2010, it was Ramos, Puyol, and PK. They had fantastic tournament in the back line. So you always remember, an Italian defense of 2006 was one of the best out there in the tournament. And 2003, if I
Hmm.
remember, Cafu and all these lads out there as well. So always remember the defense is going to be a difference. And a lot of these teams, maybe I think one team which really played the most attractive football and they went on to win the World Cup was maybe Brazil in 2002. They were one of the best out there when they played that kind of football and they went on to win the World Cup. But other than not the most impressive teams that went on to win the World Cup. Maybe in 1980s, I've not followed it much. Then I was not even born, so I can't really pinpoint from that perspective because the highlights also really don't give you an insight as to how
Yeah.
good football is. Because football has
Correct.
changed a lot from last 20 years or so. So I totally reckon a team who plays the most ugly football also have a chance to make it deep into the World Cup. So there's going to be a World Cup of who has the best defense, and that's why I reckon a lot of these teams, you can't rate any team out. So if a team, for example, I'm just giving you, if Ecuador gets a 1-0 lead against Netherlands, they can possibly churn that result out against a good Netherlands team. A Dutch team under Louis van Gaal is supposed to win. They will start as the favorites. But the Ecuador team, they've been doing good. They've got some serious youngsters out there. They've been playing some attractive football as well. But then, if they can churn a result here or there, it could really change the entirety of the tournament.
Absolutely. I mean, having said that, now let's just move once and let's look at the overview of all the groups that we have. Let's start with Group A right here, Abel. We have the host nation, Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and Netherlands. I think this group you probably expect Senegal and Netherlands to go through, especially Netherlands being one of the better teams in the World Cup, and Senegal with Sadio Mane in their lineup, who can probably lead them through.
Yeah, I possibly reckon it's gonna be these two teams who are gonna make it. Of course, Netherlands with the kind of form they've shown, they made it to the Nations League semi-finals as well. A team who's in very good form at this point. Under Louis van Gaal, they've done good. They've done really good, and they did not make it to the last World Cup, which was quite surprising for me. So
Yeah.
this is a tournament where they can really do well. As I talk about defense, their defense is very good.
Yeah, I
Matches
mean, you've
Delhi,
got Koulibaly
Van
right there, one of the best picks in Europe right now in terms
Yeah,
of defense.
so I'm just talking about Netherlands. Their defense is very good.
Oh,
De
yeah,
Vrij,
them,
yeah, De
correct.
Vrij, Van Dijk, and Matthias de Ligt. These lads
I
are
mean,
top notch.
what do you think of now the form? There are concerns about Van Dijk. There are many defenders who are running past him. He's been committing a lot of fouls as well inside the penalty box. So where do you? I mean, and Liverpool hasn't had the best of seasons because he hasn't looked as comfortable on the ball, off the ball. You would say defending. Is
Yep,
it a
yep.
concern really for Netherlands going in because they
I'll
have
tell you one
Matthias
thing, right?
de Ligt, very good defender, but is Van
Uh,
Dijk a leak in their defense now?
Sanju, I'll take your question as well. Before first, let me answer Jaren's question, and it's a very good question which you've asked. I'm personally very fascinated about the Spanish team, so I'll talk about that. Yeah. Talking about Van Dijk in Liverpool and Van Dijk in Netherlands is two different things. When we talk about Van Dijk in Liverpool, it's single man army. You know what? With the backline issues of Liverpool team, Trent has been awful when it comes to his when it comes to him, in defensive transitions. He's been really not there. He's not really stepped up. He's just looked like a dead wood for Liverpool on the right hand side. And most of Liverpool's goals which they've conceded in the entire season, some of the crucial
Yeah,
goals is through the right hand side. And that's where, Van Dijk's pressure is even more. When it comes to defensive partnerships, Joe Gomez has done it here and there. He's not really at that level. Joe Gomez is never going to be of a world class level. But for Netherlands, Van Dijk partnered with the De Vrij, Van Dijk partnered with the Matthias de Ligt is a different beast altogether because they've got potential. Because these two in partnership, alongside maybe I think ahead of them, maybe Van de Beek might play ahead of them. So I think Netherlands team will get enough support when it comes to defensive play. And even Frankie de Jong, if he plays deep for Netherlands, he doesn't usually play deep for Netherlands because Louis van Gaal really understands what Frankie de Jong can bring into this team. So he uses him as a ball progressor up in, and he's a proper box to box midfielder for the Dutch team. And I think Netherlands have used the Frankie de Jong better than any team he has played. Maybe Ajax, yes, under Ten Hag, but then Dutch team in Dutch team, Frankie De Jong is a different beast altogether, and they've got a really good upfront, strike partnership as well. When it comes to Memphis Depay, he's not been the best of forms. Kudus is really there. Kudus has had a very good season so far with Ajax, and also upfront, Bergwijn also is a very good option for Netherlands. So I think Van Dijk's issue in defensive positioning will be cleared out a lot more when he plays for the Dutch team, and I hope he does. And I'll
fair.
answer Sanju's question now.
Yeah.
How far do you guys reckon Louis Enriquez with this young team will go in? I would say semifinals. See, you saw Louis Enriquez team in the Euros. They were amazing. They played one of the best football out there. I thought they played as good football as Italy. They missed out on penalties to Italy. It was one of the best games of the tournament. The best game of the tournament was Italy versus Spain when it comes to, both teams demanded ball. Both teams want to play similar kind of football. Spain is a lot more comfortable on the ball, you can say. Got one of the best young squads out there, likes of Ansu Fati, Pedri, Gavi, all plays for the same team. They've got a very good leadership under Sergio Busquets. Defensive line is also
Yeah.
almost very good. They've got likes of Laporte playing for them this since Euros. He's been playing for Spain as well, and I think they are a team to reckon with. And Pau Torres is another defender. He's one of the most wanted defenders out there in Europe. So as a team, one of the best ball playing. About Spanish teams, they like to keep the ball, they like to play it around. But only weakness I find is, do they have the striker?
Yeah.
Alvaro Morata in the Euros, He was very bad at the start, but then he started scoring goals toward the latter end. But what do you get from Alvaro
But
Morata is
he has looked a better player for Spain, I would say, rather than his club teams over the years now.
yeah, uh, Joe Gomez
I mean,
pulling
it
a face.
is.
Yeah, we will talk about that. Yeah, yeah. To be honest, yes. When it comes to Alvaro Morata as well, see, the thing is that in Spanish team is used more differently when it comes to Atletico Madrid, because Atletico Madrid is a very defensive team. When it comes to Spanish team, his job is basically to hold the ball a lot more, pass it on to the wings, let the wingers go forward. They've got players like Oyarzabal and Sarabia as well, but then I really don't see anybody else other than Alvaro Morata to really start as a number nine. At times, I've used Ferran Torres at number nine position because the Spanish teams are so much like what do you see for Barcelona? They like playing a false nine and they can still be so successful. They really don't rely on a striker, but it also depends on how good their wingers are. I think Ansu Fati is that player to watch out for this season because even in Euros, I know Danny Olmo had a very good Euro. He was doing a very good job on the left hand side for Spanish team. But now Ansu Fati, with the kind of minutes he's got for Barcelona, the kind of form he's shown, I know he's not started full minutes for even for Spain or uh, even for Barcelona. But I really think this is the tournament for Ansu Fati to come of age, and he's got brilliant midfield behind him. Gavi is a seated presser of the ball. He can press and win you balls. And Pedri behind him, one of the best creative midfielders, and the defensive head of Rodri. I would rather have Rodri start because what Rodri gives from the kind of form he's in, he's better than Busquets. And in a World Cup stage, you would need the presence and mind of Rodri because he is so calm on the ball. He's so much like Busquets, you don't really understand how good he is because unless he makes a mistake, he makes everything look so simple. So I've been following City for the long. I'm a huge City fan, as many people know, and I know Rodri at this point. I will prefer Rodri over anybody else. But you know what? One thing with Louis Enrique is that there's this bias of him going to Sergio Busquets time and time again, and he's also one of the captains of the Spanish team. So I think he'll start with Sergio Busquets, and it's not bad. I think for this national team, a lot of his flaws get covered because of the depth they have in the back line, which Barcelona did not really have. So I'd rather go with maybe even Sergio Busquets. It's a call up to Luis Enrique. I can go with form, he can go with experience. He can choose any of them, and they'll have a good successful time. But it's about them scoring goals, and I really hope that they are able to find Alvaro Morata scoring boots in this World Cup. If he has a World Cup like what David Villa had in 2010, if he can score 5 goals in the entirety of the World Cup, that'd be enough for them to reach the semi-final. And on semi-final, it's anybody's game. I would say it's gonna be tough. And these lads are gonna be super motivated. I'm already predicting them as my top six teams, but I'm not sure how far they will go into the World Cup.
I mean, I agree with Sanju here. I think they have got the potential to come to the semi-finals at least because they are really good ball players, as you mentioned. And many a times you see, I mean, the holding, the way they hold the ball, the way they are off the ball, the runs, the kind of runs they make. I think it's really good when it comes to cup football because that's the kind of way I think many a times you'd see in cup football the teams that have very good possession
Yeah.
and are able to keep the ball for longest amount of times do really well in most often than not. And I think this team has got the potential to play the tiki-taka brand of football,
Mhm.
which sort of has been lost in the Spanish team for the past few seasons. But I think ever since the Euro League, rather not Europa, Euro competition, you've seen them come back to that brand of football once again. But let's move on quickly to Group B, and this is an interesting group right here because you've got England, Iran, USA, and Wales. All of them really good teams. US
Yeah.
have really made a comeback, haven't they? And the vibe in US is that this is their year. I know they always, always praise their team and hype them up right before the World Cup, only to
Yep.
crash
Yep.
out. But there is genuinely something in this team, right? Because we're seeing a lot of US players now break into the European clubs.
I mean, yeah. I mean, to be very honest, they've got a lot of talent when it comes to their squad, but their lead up to the World Cup hasn't been the most impressive one. They lost to Japan. They've had one of the most poor runs leading into this World Cup. So I don't know how far they will go as a team into the entirety of this World Cup. And I personally think they might not really qualify into the next round because of the fact that there's Wales, there is England as well in the same
Yeah.
group. It's a very tough group to be very honest, and England looks the best out of it. I hope Southgate doesn't really messes it up. Uh, when it comes to USA style of play as well, it's come into this kind of for quite some time now. They've got like so Christian Pulisic, who's been in very bad form for Chelsea. They've got Serginho Dest. They've got names who are made to European football, but not names who are doing well in European football at this point. So that's the difference. So, in my personal opinion, I think USA is not a team who will really go deep into this World Cup, or they might not even qualify into the next round. I'm sorry to say about this, but then yes, that is a
Yeah.
fact of it. If I can tell you, they lost to Japan, they drew against El Salvador, if I remember, and they drew against Uruguay. Uh, I think, if I remember, yes, and they drew even against Saudi Arabia. So not the best of lead up into this World Cup, and they've been very poor in terms of a lot of things. I think one of the best results was against Panama or something, where they won 5-1 in in that entire run into this World Cup. Um, a very ordinary team so far. I really hope they turn their fortunes around come the World Cup, get some additional motivation, but nothing to be very impressive of. To be very frank with a lot of people, I can't say this is a USA team of the 2014 team was one of the most impressive USA teams. They went on to play the quarterfinal, if I remember, and they were very good at this. They had a team who really could go deep into the tournament. They had that entire barrage, Tim Howard, and a lot of these players who came together at the right time for them. This time they have names like McKinney, Gio Reyna. They've got Christian Pulisic, Serginho Dest. They've got they've got Adams who plays in the midfield for Leipzig. So they've got these particular names, but as a team and as individual performances, not really up there to the mark.
Yeah, fair enough. And they've got some tough opponents as well when it comes to, because Iran is not, I mean, Iran, we wouldn't assume Iran is a world beater yet, but they are a tough team to beat on their day. And they've got Wales, Gareth Bale is one of the players who look good for Wales. Whenever he plays for Wales, he's much more comfortable than when he's
Yeah.
played for Madrid in the past. And you've got England. Let's talk about England here because England are one of the teams which have been in discussion for quite some time. They have looked good, but a lot of injury concerns there, especially at the fullback position. So they are one of the teams which are coming into the lead up of the World Cup with a lot of changes due to injuries.
I mean, I
Missing
don't.
out. I think
We'll
Ben
have a
Chilwell
separate episode
physically has
tomorrow
missed
on the
out.
entire
Yeah,
English team.
we should.
So
I
I
mean,
think
the whole
we'll
conversation
talk
is
about
difficult, but
it.
overall, yeah, but overall, how do
Yeah.
you think? Now, do you think this because this tournament is going to be a crucial one for Gareth Southgate? I mean, not Gareth Southgate, but rather Gareth Southgate.
Huh.
But he struggled, right, in terms of this England team for quite some time now. He hasn't
I mean, it's
been
not really
the
struggle when
kind
it
of
comes
coach, the
to
kind
his
of.
stats.
I mean, the English fans haven't been as forgiving when it comes to him because they crashed out of Nations League. They are in the B League, if I'm not wrong, if that's what it's called, and
Yeah.
their fortunes haven't looked good as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when it comes to English team, I think we have an entire episode planned out for what English team and their hopes and is it coming home for England. We'll talk about them in depth, but just to talk on a shallow layer, I think English press has always been the most unforgiving press. And when it comes to the kind of depth this squad has, it's the most talented squads out there in the World Cup. They've had great runs. They started this run off in 2017, 2018. They came third in Nations League then they had that semi-final run in the World Cup. No, 2019 they came to Nations League third place. 2018 semi-finalist, one of the best English runs in the recent past. 2021 Euro finalist. Uh, I know they crashed out of the Nations League this year, but if you look at the kind of teams they played in the Nations League through that course, they're not playing their best teams. Gareth Southgate has also tried to try out a lot of players to see who are the possible players for the World Cup. He's tried out Ivan Toney, and sometimes he has tried out he's played out even, uh, you know, the kind of names who I can remember at this point is Jude Bellingham, who usually doesn't start for England. In my opinion, he should start for England. He's tried him
Yeah.
out and he's done well for them. And uh, Connor Cody is one defensive name who has tried out a lot more through this journey through the Nations League. A lot of players who's quite surprising in Gareth Southgate's philosophy, because when it comes to Gareth Southgate, he's been a manager who's really stuck on to his philosophy. He'll set up players. He doesn't really tinker a lot when it comes to his form
Hmm.
versus the players he's got in his mind. He doesn't care about the form what they have in Premier League or the kind of form they've shown across Europe. Or what he cares. For example, Tamori, he had a decent season last time around. He got a call up. It's not like he did not get a call up, and I think he'll make it to the World Cup as well. He had a very good run, and he got opportunities. He got a couple of opportunities for England, but not a lot. But when it comes to Gareth Southgate, I can tell you the starting 11 right now. But I know that's the exact starting 11 which will start on the opening match. He'll play left back as mostly he'll play left back as Trippier, and on the right side he'll play Kyle Walker. So this is for
Yeah.
sure. This is for sure. It's one of the most pragmatic defensive lineups, but he's able to get results out of it. He knows if he scores one goal or two goals, he might not look the most impressive, most flamboyant footballing managers out there, but he knows how to churn out results. So that's why what made him that's what made him most successful. If you talk about some of the most successful managers in terms of their runs in recent past in the world, he's right up there. A World Cup
Mhm.
semi-final, Euro final, Nations League third place, and now once again, if he has a good run into the World Cup, and if he even is able to win the World Cup, and this is the opportunity for England to win it, I don't know if it's the right man for the job after the World Cup. He might really have to leave his job after the World Cup. There are also reports that Thomas Tuchel is one of the managers who English football is looking at to take over the job, and possibly so. And he might Thomas Tuchel might do a better job. And I'm also not the most I'm not the biggest fan of Gareth Southgate, but then the fact of the matter is, as I already mentioned, this lad knows how to get the results for this team. Because even with the pragmatic approach, if you look in Euros, they were the only team who considered the least number of goals leading into that final. And what made this English team too good? It is just that they can score a couple of goals and they can defend well because they play what 4-2-3-1 with two defensive centre backs who give shadow for the defenders in the defensive transitions, like of Declan Rice and Callum Phillips, who go-to players. So I don't think he'll be going to Calvin Phillips once again because of he's got zero game time with Manchester City. Pep hasn't really trusted him because of the injury concerns he's had. So he has to go to Jude Bellingham, who's been balling at that Dortmund
Phenomenal.
this season.
He
And
has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, being the captain of Dortmund team at that age is just an excellent. I mean, it just shows the kind of contribution he's made. And I think after losing Haaland at Dortmund, he's just been an engine room for them. He's been the reason why Dortmund has done well so far in the
yes,
European
absolutely.
competitions.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how they go about in this entirety of the World Cup. I think we won't talk about a lot of teams because we're running out of time as well because we have a
Yeah.
cricket show planned in like few minutes. So we'll move ahead from here on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll cover the next few. I mean, I think we just cover the next few groups very quickly. Group C, we have Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. You reckon? I think Mexico and Poland will be the two teams who will be competing for the second spot because Argentina most likely
Yeah.
going through from this group.
I mean, Argentina will be going through from this group. The kind of form they've shown, one of the favorites for the World Cup. I think in the last segment we'll talk about the favorites to win the World Cup, but Argentina and Poland are the favorites, and Mexico did show some bit of form running into this World Cup, but not really very impressive. I think Poland and Argentina, but then don't rate down Saudi Arabia. They have been in good form. They can possibly pull out some upsetting results. I don't know who it is going to be against, but they
Also, you have
can.
to
So
consider that both Qatar and Saudi Arabia might not be skilled, but they know how to play football in these conditions. They will not be suffering
yes,
from the heat
and what
problems.
Saudi
They will
Arabia has
not be
done is
having any issues of that sort. But you might see
yes.
English players, for instance, struggle,
Yes, and
and
Saudi
that could
Arabia,
be
what
their
they've done
victory.
is they've put a halt on their league 3 weeks before the World Cup, and they've told all these players to go start playing the matches. They're in training already at this point, and they've already joined the camp. So, which means Saudi Arabia is well prepared for this World Cup, and not just that, they've told a lot of players to go and play in Europe as well. In the meanwhile, over the last 4 years under the new manager, what happened with Saudi was before the World Cup last year, they faced a little bit of managerial issues just before the World Cup. A new set of system and staff had to come, which made sure that their World Cup journey was little catastrophic. But I hope this time around that's not the case. We will talk about Saudi Arabia as well, but our early predictions are Poland and Argentina. We can go to the next group.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on then to Group D. France, Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. I mean, I think here you will probably expect France and Denmark to be the teams
Yeah, absolutely.
going through because I mean Australia is a team probably
If
very good in
if you have
Asia, but
noticed, I think France and Australia have at least played in the last two World Cups in the same groups. Even
hmm,
2018, I think they both were in the same. I think this was almost same group of 2018. 2018 it was Denmark, France, and Australia, so it's almost a similar group. It's a very
yeah.
similar group, but I think Denmark is going to top this group. France is going to come second.
That's a big call right there. But Denmark is an excellent team. They're the kind of team that punches above their weight. As you mentioned, they are a team which has got the team chemistry. We saw how protective they were, when Christian Eriksen, I mean, I think the
Yeah,
Christian
that
Eriksen
incident has really
that
sparked the
incident
team.
really brought them together, that gelled them
Yeah,
together. And many a times you say that these are the kind of moments in teams, or I think there's more. These are the kind of tournaments when you say that they become brothers in arms, and that's the kind of power that these teams have. And Denmark, I think, is someone who's going to punch above their weight. We'll definitely come to Sandipani's favorite team in a moment.
yeah.
But let's move on to Group E then. Do you reckon he will now Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, Japan? Do you think Japan has a chance to maybe surprise either of these two teams? Because it is not going to be easy. It is a difficult group for Japan to get through, but two clear favorites in the World Cup.
Very
But
tough, but then to be honest, they are a good team. They're put in between some really good footballing nations out there in between them. But I personally think Japan might get a couple of results. Maybe they can pull up a draw against Spain. They are possible. They play very good football at this point. The likes of Tomiyasu at the back, and they've got players who can get you results. They're going through this generation of players who are very determined to do well for them. And I personally think Japan will be squeezed in between Spain and Germany, but expect them to get a result. Expect them to get a result in either of these games. But I am expecting Germany to top the group with Spain coming second.
yeah, I think that was pretty much the competition, right? Who will top the group is probably what you're going to be seeing in this group. Group F: Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. Canada has some exciting talent there, but I think it's
Mhm.
Croatia and Belgium you're probably expecting to go through.
Absolutely,
Morocco
I think.
also is a very good team. I mean, they have got one of the best left backs in their team, and
Yeah,
Hakimi is. Yeah, it's Hakimi who's there. He
yeah.
is probably the one person who
Hakimi
could
Ziyech, I don't
maybe
know.
be the
Ziyech's relationship with his manager is not the best. If they
yeah.
call upon Ziyech as well, it's going to be pretty nice. There's some really talented Moroccan youngsters at this point, and I personally think it's going to be Croatia topping the group with Belgium at number two, and Croatia because they've got their experience. They are going through a good run of form leading into this World Cup as well. So Croatia at number one. We'll talk about the squads in depth, which is running
Yeah.
through because we've got a couple of segments on the best World Cup, whatever
Yeah,
the
of
World Cup
course.
song and all this stuff as well. So I think Croatia number one, Belgium number two, because Belgium defensive line is very weak. So that's the reason I've put them at number two because they've got a very aging defensive line compared to a lot of teams in the World Cup, and they've not got the most experience. They've got a lot of experience, but they do not have the legs to cover the modern game.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Let's move on then. We have got Group G: Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. Brazil and Switzerland, you reckon they should be the ones who will probably scrape through? But
Tough,
interesting to see
but then
Cameroon back.
it's going to be very close. Brazil, Serbia, right?
Yeah, it's Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and
I
Cameroon. So I
think
think
it's going to be
Serbia is
Brazil and
one team which
Serbia.
could challenge a
I think
few
Brazil
teams.
and Serbia will make it out of this group, and Brazil should top the group. Serbia number two. Switzerland, yes, they're a very good team, but the Serbian team is a very good one. They've done exceedingly well in the last few games wherever they played, and they all pulled up a result against even Portugal. I personally think this is going to be Serbia. Serbia who's going to make it a number two, and alongside maybe Switzerland at number three. It's going to be a tough competition in Switzerland and Serbia, but Serbia should finish number two for me.
Yeah, I mean, let's see how that goes because I think Serbia is a team which can surprise many on their day, but Switzerland would be expecting at least to go into the next stage, and let's see how it goes for them. Final group, then Group H: Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. South Korea, will you reckon now? Heung-min Sung is under the scanner. I think in the World Cup, is he missing out? I'm not entirely sure on that.
He's
But
not
if
missing
he
out so
is
far.
playing,
Yeah,
how much do you think they can now challenge someone like a Uruguay or Portugal, especially because Uruguay are probably a waning superpower when it comes to their team. I mean, they've got Fede Valverde, who's probably going to be one of their key players, but Suarez, the players of the old. I mean, players of the old are getting older. Do you think they have the bite to get through to the next round, as Sandipani would say?
Yes, they have it in them. If Uruguay finish second, they're going to face Brazil. If Portugal finish second, they're going to face Brazil as well. Expecting Brazil to finish number one in the group, but but yeah, let me tell you, if Uruguay, they're a very good team, man. I love that Uruguay team. But they as of now, they have named Araujo in their preliminary squad, and Araujo is traveling to Qatar, as the reports as they say. But I told you, they've got the experience of Godin in the backline, Jimenez, and they've got decent midfield. Let me be honest. They've got Bentancur and Fede Valverde. Fede Valverde, who's been in great form for Real Madrid. I
Yeah.
think they play that 4-4-2 system, and they're one of the very few teams in the entire world who sticks onto that system. And with Darwin Nunes, what kind of form he has shown, I think Darwin Nunes will partner Luis Suarez up front, or maybe Edinson Cavani. Most likely, it's going to be Luis Suarez up top with Darwin Nunes, and in the middle. With the thing with Fede Valverde is that he can play anywhere on the pitch. He can play on the wide.
Hmm.
He can cut in. He can score goals for you. He's very good when it comes to his defensive play. Very good
Yeah.
off the ball moments. He's possibly one of the best players out there, and they're very blessed to have this. And Nico de la Cruz, he's another player to watch out for from this Uruguayan team. I personally think Uruguay has a good chance. If they finish number one, it all comes down to that game between Uruguay and Portugal. Who wins that game will definitely have the edge to finish number one in that group. But then don't rate off South Korea yet. South Korea and Uruguay and Ghana. Who remembers that rivalry from 2010? With
Oh,
Suarez's
yeah.
handball in the quarterfinal,
Correct.
leading Ghana out. They curse Uruguay after they say the African curses on Uruguay, and this is going to be one of the biggest rivalry out there. I'm personally very excited for that game. But then South Korea can also pull up some result. If South Korea can get a result against either Uruguay and Portugal, mind you, they can go a long way in the tournament because they've already shown some great signs. Especially Kim Min Jae, he's a defender in very good form. But for Napoli, he's done very well. And South Korean team is a very good one as well. Last World Cup, they pulled up a result against Germany. So don't write South Korea off just yet. One of the Asian teams who's really carrying the continent's hopes on them to go at least to quarterfinals in this tournament, but they've been put in a very tough group yet again. The quality of
Hmm.
football is really going to match, and but when it comes to the quality of football, the kind of brand of football South Korea plays is very impressive. And not just that, a team who can compete against a lot of European nations from Asia is South Korea. So for me, in that reckoning, I'll rate South Korea maybe just below Uruguay in that group, but then I'm expecting Uruguay to finish number two, considering no Araujo in the team.
Fair enough. Well, that's all our coverage from the groups at least. One final question before they end the live. Abel, do you think this is possibly the worst World Cup songs when it comes to the past few years? Because the world, I'll be honest with you guys. For me, at least, I am a traditional cricket fan. I really started loving football ever since I started playing PES and FIFA, which is not what most people would say. It's the opposite, right? But for me, World Cup songs and World Cup has been a vibe. This year, do you think that's a bit of a letdown?
Well,
Probably
this year
because Piqué and
it's been a
Shakira broke up.
massive letdown. I really wanted Aisho Speed's song to be the official song of the World
You know,
Cup.
I really think it's Shakira who's missing out. Shakira is a World Cup star.
Regardless of Shakira missing out or not, it has really depleted. It's just awful. I mean, it's one of the worst
Yeah.
songs I've ever heard in my life. Especially the one which featured Nora Fateh in it. It was just
I
just
think,
rubbish in my
to be very
ears.
honest, even for me, I mean, and this is probably a business decision from them. They probably wanted some Asian representation or some sort of something of that level. But for me, I felt and this might come off very wrong for some people, and it's just my opinion is what I feel strongly. I think if you look at the past few years, World Cup, what FIFA has done, they have gotten some really good artists to create the song, and that's
Yeah.
been the whole vibe, right? You've seen Jason Derulo do it, Pitbull and Jennifer Lopez, Shakira, who again I would say is a goat of World Cup songs. But this year, I think that's probably one thing that's missing. I'm all for giving opportunities to some of the budding stars, but I think maybe that kind of quality is what you're missing. You're
I
waving
mean,
flags, an
I don't think
absolute
Waving
classic.
Flag or
Uh,
Waka Waka or La La La, even the Pitbull song 2014 was still a vibe. But when it came 2018, also it was just poor. The one which featured Will Smith and all of these lads. But I love the one which Jason Derulo came with. It
yeah, the
was
Coca-Cola
pretty nice.
anthem was pretty
Yeah,
good.
But this time around there's no Coca Cola as well to make a
Maybe that's
song.
the reason
And
why
this
we had let down.
maybe, but then there's another marketing thing to this. What happens in summer World Cups is that you can market brands like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, because
Yeah,
it's largely
absolutely.
consumed during
Everybody's spot
summer.
on.
What are you going to market in Europe and South America, or let's majorly in Europe during
You know
winters?
what, Abel? I've got
Who's
a
gonna-
suggestion. I think FIFA should reach out to Tapal Tea. They have definitely the chance to be, remember Tapal Tea moment from Pakistan England series? I think they have the chance. It's
I
happening
think
right here
you
in
know,
Qatar. It's
in
happening in
Middle East,
winter. We should have a Tapal Tea moment in FIFA World Cup. Hands
absolutely.
down.
Just not that. When it comes to Middle East, the love all the Arabs have got for Karab chai is just beautiful. So I think a Karab tea
Tapal Tea moment.
sponsor. in the title. Like you already have Baiju's, Messi wearing Baiju's and everything. So it's become very
Yeah.
Indianized. The World Cup has become very Indianized. You're going to see Baiju's kids walking into the park with these players, like what you already saw in the Cricket World Cup. And
You
you're
know
going
what?
to see
I'll
a
be
lot.
honest. For me, I would rather have the jersey of the opposition team because what will I do with a Baiju's t-shirt? I mean, you
I mean,
remember how?
you are promoting that brand. You have to do it because they're paying the
Yeah,
World Cup.
I
So
understand all of
that's the whole
that,
point.
but I'm somewhat. I mean, maybe
I mean,
I'm a
it's
bit
okay.
Ronaldo minded
It's
to
okay.
say
I
that
mean,
I don't
it's
really
fine.
care
The
about the
kids are
sponsorships,
supposed to
but
be
you know,
neutral. It's fine.
yeah,
I mean, it's just a marketing call. I don't mind about it.
it
So
is,
that's what
it
I
is,
mean.
it is.
This time around, you're not having best songs is one factor to it. That's one of the reasons why the build up hasn't been like the build up of 2010 or
Yeah, I
2014.
think
And
that's
it's
where,
been a lot.
yeah, I think the non-football fans have really not attracted themselves to the World Cup. Traditional football fans obviously love the World Cup, but it's always a FIFA World Cup which brings in so many fans who are not traditionally football fans who don't stay up at night, catch a Champions League match, but they will definitely catch the FIFA World Cup because that's my earliest memory. I remember, my fam. As I said, I'm not a traditional cricket fan, but I've always seen World Cups growing up. When football World Cups, whenever they were, available in the Indian time. Before my bedtime, so as to speak, I would definitely catch it. But this year, you don't see that kind of vibe with non-football fans.
Yeah, I mean, particularly, it's majorly because of the fact that, marketing hasn't been that very well
Yeah,
done. It could have been barely done. I don't know why and what is the reason. And also remember, the football season has already begun. It's not holidays anywhere in the world. It's all peak time after festive seasons and everything. Everybody's pretty busy. Usually, you see it being during the holiday season, so it's better marketed all across the world. And this time around, it's not come there. It's not season breaks. You have football going around everywhere. It's between that 1 month of gap where the World Cup has been fit into just for the sake of fitting it in, or
yeah,
else that's one of the reasons why the marketing hasn't really gone up. But then ultimately, it is the World Cup. I think once it starts, everybody will start following it as well. Let the first day of World Cup come, maybe at least let the first week of World Cup come. When it comes to the Asian population, South Asian population, they're pretty busy with the cricket World Cup as well at this point. A lot of the Indians, a lot of
yeah,
the Pakistanis, a lot of people across the South, Middle East and everywhere are also expats from India, Pakistan, all these countries as well. So they're also pretty much inclined into the cricket World Cup at this point because it's also happening during this period of time. People are talking about Virat Kohli a
yeah.
lot more and all this and that. So these are one of the factors why Qatar World Cup is not getting the recognition as it is supposed to get, right? Because we're just 2 weeks away. But I'm pretty sure in the last week you're going to see that boom, and you're going to see a lot more people focusing on the World Cup. The hype is going to really hit the bar. That's always been the case with all the World Cups. But yeah, Song has been a letdown. It's been possibly the worst. I
Yeah.
rated it 3 out of 10.
All right. Thank you so much, Abel, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this coverage. We will be getting into each and every team, looking at tactics, and a lot more coverage will come up because the Football World Cup is catching steam. It is coming. It's going to be an exciting World Cup. A lot of variables coming to the World Cup. But thank you so much, Abel, for joining. Thank you so much, guys. We will be back very soon because we have the Cricket World Cup to think about. The semi-finals are about to begin. Some exciting run of play so far. It's just gonna get more and more exciting. A lot more here coming in Boom 11. But before we end the show, remember Boom 11 fantasy app which you can play without any risk whatsoever. In fact, you're not gonna lose any money. You're only gonna gain more things. And please do look. You have a lot of exciting prizes that you can gain from the amount of coins you earn. Aisha, we're not going yet. It's just buy before we come back again. And we're going to have your favorite friend Sandipani join as well. But before we end the show, make sure you download Boom 11 on App Store or Google Play, wherever you download your apps. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us. See you on the other side very soon.